good, everyone? Today we're here for my footy tips for round 22. There are 3 rounds to go during the home and away season, and I've read somewhere early in the week that there's no team yet locked into finals up until this point into the season, which to me it sounds like it may be a first. Now, the last couple of tips videos, we set the goal of 1,000 likes, and we just quite haven't hit the mark yet. And I know that we're capable of doing so we're going to go and give it another crack, and also hit that subscribe button, and let's tick that counter towards the 50% goal, because we want to get more than half the people watching my videos to subscribe to the channel. Now, if you want to submit your own predictions and big calls to get them reviewed in the video, the form is down below in the pinned comment, and a little bit later on we'll be going through the best for round 21. But actually taking a look at round 21, and we ended up getting a score of 6 out of 9. I know it does say 5 there, but once again, just having a few issues with the app, and didn't end up actually registering the first game. But obviously I would have tipped the Western Bulldogs there like everyone else. And then Gold Coast was the tip that I did against the Eagles. And it's probably the last time I do trust them away from home in terms of the tips. This is my last crack at it because I knew they were terrible there and they're yet to win a game away. North Melbourne to beat Richmond. I think I got this margin spot on by saying 13 points. Geelong to beat Adelaide. I was tempted to tip Collingwood actually, because I was sitting in a bay of Collingwood fans if you watch my video, especially in the first half. But I just stuck with the Blues, and really they should have won that game. They were disappointing. Could you say this is the craziest result of the season? Maybe. The fact that the ladder leaders have lost by 112 points. At least I went the power, but not by that much, that's for sure. On the Sunday, I said the Giants would beat the Hawks. Pretty good tip there. And I was almost going to tip the Bombers here, but I wasn't quite risky enough to do so. I said that they'd be just about in the game. And then I went Brisbane in a game that let's not really talk about. That was a disgraceful effort from the Saints. One of the worst games I've been to in a while. And for this week, we're also going to be choosing the Joker. We have one left, so we may as well use it with only a few more rounds to go. As always, we'll be reviewing my tipping comp. If you guys want to be a part of it, there is still time. With almost 1,800 members. The best tippers every week, as well as the overall competition, do get mentioned. So if you want to mention in the videos, feel free to join with the next few rounds to come. Let's see, round 21, we had a few people tip a score of 8 using their Joker. We had Harry Milk, ESPN fan, blah, blah, blah. We're not reading that. And then Pat Cross Dogs as well with a solid score. And we actually had a few people getting a perfect score of 9, including the Joker. That included Flag Pies 35, X-Man 11, Noam Flag Dons, The Real Jam, another ESPN fan, and Willie Will. Let's take a look at how I went, and I finished 960th in my comp this round. We have an outright leader here after round 21. Pat Cross Dogs, a new face in the competition with a good score last week, is now up to 144, leading the competition by 3. Rort Wasp is still there, but he's trailing by 3. Ryan Chappie also with a big score in round 21, using the Joker and climbing up the ranks, with Ivan Soldo and Clancy Hyde rounding out that top 5. As if you want to see where I am, I think I'm not even the top 1,000. I'm 960th. Hey, that's terrible. Now, quickly take a look at the best predictions for round 21. We'll go through them quickly. The ones highlighted were the best ones. Alvin had the correct margin for Bulldogs and Melbourne. West Coast, Gold Coast. A few people went the Eagles to win by 10. But once again, Coppo's crowd said that the Roos win by 13. Cherry to have 8 or more tackles and 30 hitouts was a good call because that happened. Geelong beat Adelaide. I want to go to this comment right here. Cool Sharita that the Cats win by 5, and also predicted Jamie Cameron to kick the match winner, which pretty much exactly happened. 5 people all predicted the Pies win by 3 points. Not many people were ever going to get the Port Adelaide Sydney prediction right. Fidget said that the Power would lead by 55 or more, which is probably the closest. A few people predicted Hawthorn to choke a 25 plus point lead, which was accurate there. Giants by 2 was the closest prediction of the margin. Was that? I think that was the final margin, wasn't it? Yeah, a couple people got that right, including Fidget again. SNV Freo, well, no one really predicted too much correct here. Someone said the Bombs win by 2 for St Kilda beat Brisbane. Another tough one to get for the margin. Someone said the Lions by 88. They got close. Now, for the big calls last week, I needed to get 3 correct this week to avoid any more punishments, and I was close with a few, but unfortunately, once again, I didn't get the required amount. I did have a few, as I said before, that were close. The only one that I got right was the Hawthorn Giants game, where I said that the Hawks would lead for longer but lose. And I'll tell you what, I should have got the Port Sydney one right. I said Georgiades and Radaglia would combine for 6. Radaglia kicked 1 goal 3, whereas Mitch Georgiades kicked 4 goals 2, and Collingwood v Carlton, Pendlebury did have over 25 touches, but he just didn't kick a goal, and he could have kicked that goal in the first quarter. So, I know which one we have to do. It's actually another Goat HQ comment, and that's actually to live stream for 24 hours, but 1 game. Because this will be done in October and I've got other things to do, fuck doing just the 1 game. If you want to see me do a 24-hour stream, I will do a 24-hour stream. But instead of just doing the 1 game, the entire stream, I'll pick 1 game to play for 8 hours of the stream, because there's no game that I could possibly stomach playing for 24 hours. It'll be the most boring stream ever if it's the same thing for 24 hours. And I'll be honest with you, most of you guys would rather see that anyways. It's the same concept. I'm still playing games for 24 hours, just not the one game, because fuck that. Time for the predictions now, and we start on the Friday night. Sydney and Collingwood. I'll tell you what, a couple of weeks ago, you would have given me this fixture, and I would have been like, what a no-brainer this is. But now, I tell you what, it's anyone's game. It really is. Sydney at the moment, they're spiraling out of control this season. They're still first. They clearly don't deserve to be first with the power rankings, but they've been playing some dreadful footy. I think their form is now 4 losses in the last 5. They did not lay a single punch all game. They lost by 112 points. And it took him until midway through the second quarter to not just kick a goal, but to score. That's the longest in 20 years it's taken for a team to score in a game of footy. And we're talking about the team that's first on the ladder, and that was unstoppable just only a month ago. So what has happened to Sydney? What has caused their downfall? Who knows? Injuries, players out of form, players not really trying enough. I mean, their first quarter is not only just a worry now, they're a real concern because they're just getting absolutely pummeled in first quarters, and it's getting worse and worse after every week. No side has won the premiership, losing by more than 100 points in a single season. So the Swans at the moment will have to create history because, yeah, they didn't lay a single punch all game against the Power. It was the most pathetic performance from a side almost all year, I'd actually have to say. So, yeah, disappointing from the Swans. They're in some terrible form, and they need to pick up their form here against the Pies, who are in a little bit of form at the moment. They've got a couple wins in a row. They beat the Blues. They beat the Tigers. That game against Carlton was a really solid, gallant win. They fought it out, especially in the first 3 quarters, but they prevailed in Pendlebury's 400th game, which gives them still a little bit of a glimmer of hope for finals. I do feel like the Pendlebury 400th game was a bit of a factor, though, that contributed to the win, and this is at the SCG. The Swans normally are pretty solid here. Are Collingwood going to be good enough? Are they going to be in some good enough form? I know that De Goey won't be playing this game. He's out for the rest of the season. I'm still leaning more towards the Swans. I know it's kind of hard to trust them after last week, but the Pies still are a little bit patchy, and they've got a lot more now to play for after the last few weeks. They've got to prove to the competition that there's still a genuine chance at threatening for the flag. And at the SCG, if they can't get a win here, I think they're cooked. The Swans, for mine, though, they just do enough. Win the game by 14 points, but I'm going to say that the Pies lead for longer and lose. It's going to be another terrible start for Sydney, in my opinion. On the Saturday, we have Brisbane and GWS to the Gabba. Tell you what, the Lions are in some awesome form. They're 9 in a row. In my opinion, they're the clear premiership favourites after last week, and they were in cruise control for most of their game last week against the Saints. They started off with the first couple of goals, but they just never looked back, really, from the first quarter. The first quarter is probably their worst quarter in terms of dominance. I tell you what, they were just unstoppable. They won the contested possession count by more than 40. They won every quarter. They led for the whole game, and they were just way too classy. Lockie Neal, Zorko, Rayner, Danaher up forward was taking the piss. All of their big guns are firing at the right time right now. In Brisbane, they could be pushing for not just a top 2 spot, but maybe the minor premiership, which would be crazy given their position in the ladder like 9 weeks ago. I think they were 13th. The Giants, though, I wouldn't be pulling them under the rug, though. I wouldn't be saying that they're no chance at this one. They're currently going under the radar. They're 5 wins in a row, but no one's really talking about how the Giants are getting their wins. I guess, to be fair, they haven't been as convincing as other sides, but they're still getting these wins that are just pushing them up the ladder, and they win this game, and I think they'll finish top 4. It'll be a tough one, though, because the Lions are definitely in some good form, and the Giants, they made it tough last week, you know, overcoming a 28-point deficit at 3-quarter time when they were trailing for most of the game. Hogan, I think, kicked 5 goals once again. He's kicked now more than 4 goals 5 weeks in a row, and he's currently leading the Coleman medals. And I think that last quarter against the Hawks may wear him out a little bit heading into this game. I just feel like the Lions are just primed for another big game. Look, I don't think they're going to get smashed out of the water or anything like that, but it's just the Lions right now. They seem like more of a deadly threat, and I'm going to say they get the win by 23 points. With my big call, Lockie Neal in Brownlow form right now, he'll record 130 or more fantasy points. Also, 1:45 PM at Blundstone Arena, we have North Melbourne taking on West Coast, and I feel like this game could be a game that maybe flies under the radar a little bit. 17th v 16th. Weirdly enough, both of these sides actually got wins on the weekend, which is the first time I can remember in a while at this point in the season where sides in the bottom 3 both recorded wins. North got some reward after some pretty impressive form over the last couple of months, finally getting another win. That's their 3rd of the year. In a seesawing affair, it has to be said, Cherry is just currently unstoppable right now in terms of his form. He's in all-Australian form. I think he had another 150 plus score in terms of fantasy. Larkey kicked 5 goals up forward, Sheasel, LDU, the likes, they were impressive. But Richmond didn't make it easy for North. In fact, it only took them till, late in the 3rd quarter to properly get in front, and then they only just held on in the last quarter. It was a pretty decent game. I was watching bits and pieces of that, but I was watching more of the West Coast game, and I feel like that win was more impressive in my opinion. West Coast were trailing by around 20 points at halftime. It looked like the Suns were just going to walk away with a relatively comfortable win. but that wasn't the case because they had such a dominant last quarter. It seemed like it was inevitable they were going to run over the top and win, and they did. They were so good. Waterman up forward kicked the bag. I believe it was Jamie Cripps that kicked the match winner. Yo and Kelly in the last quarter were also really good, and you know, they just dominated. The Suns were really scared in that last quarter. It was a weak performance from Gold Coast, but it can't be discredited how good West Coast were. And their first win in over 10 weeks, I think it was. So that'll give them a bit of confidence heading to this one that they might be able to upset North. But it is in Bluntstone and they don't play very well up there, to be honest with you. North Melbourne, they've got more experience at that ground. I just think it's going to be a little bit too tough for West Coast. I'll say North win this game by 8 points. And I'm going to say for my big call, Tristan Cherry has 50 or more hitouts and 1 or more goal. The next game we have Fremantle and Geelong. I am really sorry, Cats fans. I've done you dirty. I think this is the most significant game almost of the round. This is the biggest game on the Saturday. Two sides fighting for that top 4 spot and two sides on the opposite end of results last week. The Cats, they can probably breathe a sigh of relief because I wouldn't say they were overly dominant. They made it difficult for themselves. Adelaide, to be fair, they were really good. Jeremy Cameron, he kicked 6 goals. He was basically the reason why they won it, and Lawson Humphries also kicking the winner. So the Cats just keep on ticking along with these wins. They're sitting just outside the top 4 on percentage. Fremantle, damn, that was an opportunity going begging. They really should be, third on the ladder. They were up by more than 20, I think, against the Bombers. And honestly, with Freo last week, they just couldn't win enough for the footy in the middle. Like, the centre clearances, they got smashed in. Essendon were just walking all over them for most of the game, and it occurred especially in the last quarter where they kicked 4 to 5 goals in a row it was to hit the lead, and then the Dockers levelled the score with 40 seconds to go. But then Essendon did exactly what they did against the Crows in the centre clearance. Draper to Merritt to Martin with a winning point, and you'd be pissed off if you're a Dockers fan because that was a win that you shouldn't have let go. It's a tough one to pick because I know the Dockers at home, they're normally the side you just back in. They've been really good this year at home. But Geelong, I just see them being the sort of side that can get these random results. They're a real chance in this one, the Cats. They probably caught the Dockers at a pretty good time. I'm going to say they get it done in one of the better games this round for sure. 10-point win for the Cats. My big call that the Dockers score 10 goals or less. I feel like they're going to have one of those days where just can't kick straight the Dockers. Next up at Marvel Stadium, we've got Essendon taking on Gold Coast at 7:30 p.m. The Bombers just keeping their season alive for one more week. And you'd probably think they can get one more win against the Suns here as well to just remain a slight chance at finals. I'll tell you what, I knew the Bombers weren't going to allow themselves to play as poorly as they did against the Saints, and I didn't think it was going to be an easy win for Freo, and it wasn't. Zach Merritt once again, just such an inspirational leader. Nick Martin. Who else? Jai Caldwell. He was awesome in the midfield as well. He had over 30 touches, kicked a couple of goals, and Stringer also had a good game. A rare good game. He hasn't had the best season, to be fair for him. You think they beat the Suns here, because we all know now the Suns are just very, very incapable of winning away. Gold Coast have been gifted the easiest fixture this year. They've played Richmond, West Coast, and North twice, and they're probably going to lose against both Richmond, North, and West Coast away, which has just killed their chance of making finals. They can win at home. They're such a different side. They provide all this promise and hope. But then, you know, when the going gets tough, and that's exactly what the case was in the last quarter. It was a weak performance. They kept fumbling the footy when they had their chances, and the Eagles were just too tough for them in that last quarter. It was spineless the way they went about in the last quarter, and they just didn't seem like they cared enough. And that's their season done just about, I think. I don't think they can beat Essendon here. I've always, in the past few seasons, when Essendon have played Gold Coast at Marvel, I've always seemed to tip the Suns, weirdly enough, but it just never seems to be the case. Essendon are normally a side that tear apart the Suns at home, and I think it's going to be another case of the same thing. Not to be, though, for the Suns here. I'm going to say the Bombers win this game by 25 points. Just stay alive in finals, just one more week. My big call is that the Dons kick 6 or more consecutive goals at any stage during the game. Also, same time slot, and weirdly enough, also in Melbourne at the same time, we have Melbourne and Port Adelaide at the MCG. I've got to stop letting my sister borrow my team scarves when she goes to the games because she seems to always never return them, and it's always the case in my tips videos. Once again, we haven't got a Melbourne scarf, but probably the scarf that I don't think deserves to be put up there because they were terrible against the Dogs on the weekend, because they were garbage against the Dogs last week on the weekend. Should have lost the game by 70 to 80 points. First 15 minutes, it should have been a 6 to 7 goal margin. They couldn't win any of the footy. The Dogs were, they were lucky that the Dogs were inaccurate, and the D's, to be fair, when they had their chances, they're actually putting him through. So they only lost the game by 51 points, but they just couldn't win enough for the footy. The Dogs were hungry, they wanted it more. And I fear for them that they're in free fall to finish off the season. Mathematically, they can still make the finals, but they've got 3 losses in a row, and they're not playing anywhere near as good enough footy to be our finals quality. And they're coming up against Port Adelaide, probably the worst time that they could ever come up against this side. They absolutely destroyed at the top of the ladder Sydney Swans by 112 points. It's a sort of performance that should put fear into the rest of the competition's eyes because that was incredible. They just kept getting to space up forward, getting all these easy marks inside 50s. Georgiades kicked 4. Dixon was good. Rioli up forward was also good. Whilst at the Carlton Collingwood game, I kept looking up on the scoreboard in the first quarter and early in the second. I just kept seeing up on the scoreboard, Port Adelaide increasing their lead with all these goals without Sydney scoring anything. And the entire crowd around me, the Bay, was absolutely shocked. I think there was a Sydney fan actually at the game. Yeah, no, I think Port Adelaide here are a real chance of not just winning, but by winning by 50 plus. The only saving grace is the fact that this game is played at the MCG. And Melbourne, they're normally quite competitive and don't allow themselves to get smashed at this ground. Port Adelaide will win this game by 24 points. And for my big call is that the top 3 leading disposal getters are all Port Adelaide players. Alrighty, we head to the Sunday and we've got Carlton take on Hawthorn at the MCG. I will be going to this game, so I'm looking forward to it. I've got some pretty good tickets for this one, and it's probably the most important game of the round. I thought Freo Geelong was good, but I think this is going to be better. These two sides are currently both competing for the race to the 8, and I feel like the loser probably is out the finals race. That's if it's Hawthorn. I think Carlton can still afford to lose this game. They certainly wouldn't want to though, but Hawthorn right now, this is a must-win for them if they want to make finals, which they were unlucky in last week. I watched bits and pieces of their game against the Giants. They were up by 28 at three-quarter time. They're just such a fun side to watch when they're on, but they also are a side that can't hold on to leads. We saw what happened against the Power early in the year. They'd be disappointed because that's a real blunder, especially given what happened with Port Adelaide with that win against Sydney, because I don't think they're missing out on finals now. So it looks like for Hawthorn, in terms of making finals, the only side that they can probably steal a final spot from is maybe Carlton. Carlton, they've lost 4 of their last 5. They're in some terrible form. Not quite as bad as Sydney, but still. That they needed to beat Collingwood there, and they just left their run too late. I wouldn't say they were terrible in the first 3 quarters. I thought they were kind of unlucky, and they should have probably been in front at times. They kicked the first 8 behind the game for them. They just weren't as tough as Collingwood for most of the game. The last quarter, though, that was where they actually started to finally play like they wanted to win. They were down by 32 points. They kicked 5 goals in a row, and they almost won the game. I just expect both these sides to attack each other at all costs, and it's going to be, a great spectacle, this one. But I'm going to still lean towards the Hawks because I think, their form to me has been more impressive. I know Carlton, they're going to want to put up a massive performance here. So they could win this game by more than 40 points. I can't see Hawthorn winning this game by more than 20 points, to be honest. I think Hawthorn will win the game, but they're not going to win by a lot. If Hawthorn win, it'll be a close game. Close win. They'll win it by 9 points, and that's what I'm going to predict. With my big call, both sides have 8 or more individual goal kickers. Next up, we have Richmond take on St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. Richmond have a rare home game at Marvel, and they get to the Saints, because we all know Richmond fans don't like playing at Marvel Stadium. Again, with this one, it's an irrelevant game. It means nothing, and I don't think it's worth, honestly, going out of my way and vlogging. Maybe last week's performance from the Saints took a little bit too much out of me, because that was pathetic. Well, we were weak, we were gutless, we didn't really attempt anything, honestly. We were terrible. As I said before, we were just smashing the contested possessions. When we went up forward, we just couldn't find a target. And defensively, we were really poor. We just let Brisbane get into open space. And Brisbane, they were in the mood of just ripping apart a side. And the Saints allowed them to do that. And it was an 85-point margin at the end of the game. If this game meant a little bit more, I would have been more disappointed with the loss. It's a whatever loss. Disappointing. But you'd hopefully think the Saints bounce back against Richmond because they're going to win the wooden spoon at this rate after the game against North. They were okay against North. Richmond, in fact, they were leading for most of the game and probably should have been up by a bit more in that second quarter. Nankervis and Taranto, they back in the squad, made an immediate impact for Richmond, honestly. And if the Tigers play like they did against North Melbourne in the first half, then I feel like we could be set for a pretty close game of footy, especially if the Saints dished up what they did last week. Then Richmond could genuinely be a chance of winning this game. But if they're going to win any more games for the rest of the year, this is probably the game they do it in. So I'm going to say the Saints get a win here by 35 points. And from a big call, the Saints will record their highest first quarter score, which is 32 or higher. And the final game of the round, we have Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs at the Adelaide Oval. And I tell you what, it's going to be a real fight and challenge for the Crows here. They were good against the Cats, but will they be good enough at home to beat the Western Bulldogs? In my opinion, the second best side in the competition behind the Brisbane Lions. The Bulldogs, they're in some incredible form the last 4 weeks. All their players are firing at the right time, and with the form they're in right now, they'll make top 4. Bulldogs dominated territory in footy last week against Melbourne and should have won that game by 70 or 80 points. I think the expected score would have been like a 70-point win. As for the Crows, well, it's been a disappointing year for them. They've had a few games where they've shown lots of hope and promise, but other games where they've been absolutely deplorable. And it's weird because at home, they can either be unstoppable or just terrible. And I just don't know which Adelaide outfit's going to show up, because a good Adelaide outfit have definitely the capabilities of beating the Bulldogs, but the bad Adelaide outfit have the capabilities of losing by more than 40 points. And with the form the Bulldogs are in right now, they're not the sort of side to be taken lightly. Like they want to just continue rising up the ladder and gaining as much percentage as they can. For Adelaide's sake, hopefully they can make it closer, but I think the Bulldogs are going to be way too strong, and I think they're going to win this game by 41 points with my big call. Jamari Eagle-Hagan kicks 5 or more goals. So a quick little review of my tips. We went the Swans by 14, the Lions, North Melbourne, Geelong, Port Adelaide, Essendon, Hawthorn, St Kilda, and the Western Bulldogs. And I've also used my joker for this round as well. So hopefully I can get a score of 7 or 8. Be great to use my joker and finish on a high. If you guys haven't used your joker yet, you've got 3 more weeks to do it. And if you guys haven't yet liked the video, well, I'm giving you another chance because there could be 999 likes if you look down, and you could be the 1,000. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all very soon for some more content. There should be a video out tomorrow. Don't quote me on that though.